What was I going to say about Colombia? I forgot. I lost my train of thought on all
Your
that.
friends down there.
Oh, yes. They watch the channel. And so when I say Gen X to them, what does that mean?
Is that just
You
an
know,
American thing?
well, it has to be. Do you think in Colombia that they had latchkey kids? Do you think that they had kids throwing rocks at the train, garage bands, all
I
that in the time that the country was in the middle of a bloody civil war, Pablo Escobar running around on the ground,
well,
all that going on? That was there that for a kid born in 19 Troy, if we would have grown up here, we would have been when Pablo hit the scene 15 years old.
yeah.
We would have not got sucked into that. And so our from 15 to 25 would have been the 80s. And through that entire time, there would have been Pablo Escobar because he doesn't die until 92. So if I
Well,
was
and
born
my
where I live,
adventures in Phoenix in the 80s, I knew some Colombians.
right. This town here is where Carlos Later, if you watch the Narcos series, he's the hippie type German guy that flew the airplane.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was big in the Medellin Cartel. Carlos Later's from here. This is his town. And you can still see all of his stuff. It's all burned out, bombed out. They leave it there on purpose so everybody can see it. I'll take a picture of it sometime. Big
Wow.
explosions out.
Thanks for the memories.
That's exactly what it's there for, to remind
Yep.
everybody, if you ever do that again, this is what happens.
Exactly.
So Carlos Later was here. So if I was born here in Armenia, Colombia, at that time, Carlos Later, I would have been 15 years old, and I might even have known him. And so I think of that sometimes. If I had been born here instead of Carbondale, Illinois, 1980, I would have been 14. So yeah, 14 to 24, I would have been around for the entire run that guy was here operating right here. And based on my own behavior in the States, I don't know if I'd be here right now.
Huh.
I think it's just very slim that I would, because imagine how hard it would have been if by chance you were outlaw rebel, sort of like we were, me being dropping out of school and running away from home and all this other stuff, getting into drugs and alcohol way too young. If I had been that kind of kid here in Colombia in 1980 and been 14 years old, and Pablo's regime was around me for the next 12 years.
You may have ended up a millionaire for a little while.
For a little while is the operable thing. That's the thing with all of them, right? It's for now.
You may have enjoyed life for 6 years.
You don't see that. What'd you do? Oh, I retired from cartelling.
Yeah, retired from drug dealing.
I'm a retired fart
I hit that amount that I wanted to make, and I got out.
Right. It's like they say with like the ELN and the FARC. They're like, why are they all so young? Why do you think? Because when that's your day job, running around shooting M16s at the government all day, you don't tend to age. And so that's most of those kids running around out there between like 14 and 20.
Wow, that's not a very good lifespan.
No, they go down and they raid the indigenous villages or small Colombian towns and just cart off the kids, and that's where the FARC comes from. And then you also do have some that join it, but they join it just because they have nothing else to do. Average Colombian makes what, $300 a month, US if you did it that way.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, that is what it is. Okay, so so the anatomy of the circus. So this is what happened. A genuine, legitimate policy question. What are the rules for public space and secular? Okay, this is the late say fair. We pretty much talked through all this whole thing. So street prayer permits, it creates a parallel society, conquering Western civilization. You can see how that goes. It sounds like you're being reactionary and far-fetched, but as we've said, they say that's what they want to do. So whether or not it's going to happen, we can be scared about it all we want. That's some of their intention is. And depending on how you want to go, there's supposedly this book that was put out, some global jihad thing like in the 90s, where it called on a long game of doing this. Move to these countries, start this up, and eventually we will outbreed them. So here we are 30 years after that book. So
I've met a Muslim last September, and he told me that. He says, we're going to take over the United States. And he said the exact same thing. He said, because we make babies, you don't.
Oh, thank God Trump was elected. That ended that. For now, we got a reprieve anyway. So Anyway,
He
this
was
is
a
sort of
nice
talks
fella, but he had
the
some
guy.
interesting stories about Palestine that were pretty enlightening.
Is this so? Did he come from there?
Yeah, he's a Palestinian.
Where did you
Shalim.
meet a Palestinian?
He owned a car dealership, and I bought a car off of him. I call that car the Islam Bomb.
No,
Did
you
you
have
don't
no
get that
bias
one out?
at all. Right,
What?
right. There's no bias in here. Okay, so really fast, since we were already talking about Colombia a minute ago, the way so that's our democracy. Okay, that's how we do democracy in the United States. So you ask yourself, well, maybe if we just had more parties, we'd have somebody that pays attention to getting the bridge fixed. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it? Why don't we do that? How about be like Colombia and you have like 8? That's what they do it here. And you never have a majority. And the way that you do it is you have these coalitions that are built and fall apart regularly. That's why we have the presidential election in 3 stages. They vote on this massive people, and then everybody comes together and agrees on who they want to vote for next. And it gets smaller and smaller until it gets to the end, down to 2 people. And then they have a collection behind them of everybody similar to the United States at this point, because it gets down to mean 2. But it's everybody from the purple-haired person to the steel worker, and from the Bible thumper to the whatever. Their examples are down here. And so you still get it. You have lots of parties. And so the only way you can do anything is if coalitions agree, not a majority. And so effectively it might be similar, but a 2-party coalition happens inside the party, hidden. Okay. It all takes place out there. Here, once they elect somebody, then it's all in this crazy debate that takes place ongoing in the Congress. And so that they intentionally call that process a Mermelada, it says here, which literally is jam. The patronage buying used openly to build majorities. Now, here's what they mean by that. This is where they do pork belly the other way around. They buy the votes. And so they will go out and they will convince people to do things for them or whatever, invest in certain things so that they get people to support them enough. That's the way it does it here. So the pork doesn't come from the top. The pork comes on the way up. And so that makes it even more convoluted, because depending on who gets what, they have more power. So
now, but by the time it's finalized, everybody's just so burned out. Like, I don't even care anymore.
No. What happens is what happened right here. President Petro only has 4 months left, and he's in 2026, and he's still not been able to get a majority to get any of his things through.
Lame duck.
So that ends up with the same non-effective government. So what ends up happening with Petro is he does something similar like Trump. They have this sort of limited power that they have as a president. Trump can just impose tariffs, and then, of course, they go and they whatever happens. Here, for instance, like Petro one day wanted to get a whole bunch of new votes to vote for the left in the upcoming election. So what he decided to do is say, hey, we're going to raise the minimum wage by 23% starting next week. And, of course, that just sent the entire country into chaos. How a business, can they afford this? I mean, and they saw it also led to expats having to leave because of, get this, Troy.
Can't afford it.
Get this. When you get under some forms of the visa, for you to move here and retire, you have to buy a property, and the cost of that property has to be a certain percentage of what the average yearly income of a Colombian would be. Okay, so just for numbers, all right, let's say that 100 is how much a Colombian makes in a year, and you must buy a property that is worth at least 35. So you buy your property and your house for 35, and now you have the visa. So long as you own the house, you have the visa, and it qualifies. When the president raises the minimum wage 23%, your house doesn't go up. Your visa is canceled. Your visa is canceled now. You no longer have a visa. You own a house in Colombia, and now you're leaving. And that is what has happened. There's videos about this. There's a guy just happened in Manizales recently.
So what you're saying is, if I come down there, don't buy a house.
Well, I've said that from the day one. But no, I've said that openly from day one. But actually, we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, that ended up getting repealed and all this. And so it actually, it was crazy that when that first happened, he also made a draconian, like he rose the price on beer and gambling, liquor and gambling. And I remember I went into the store that day and I looked over in the beer section, all the like the whole staff was over there changing all the prices on everything. And everything went up like 30% in one day. And then it all came right back down because they shot. But then the Supreme Court said you can't do it. So then it all went back down. So now people that have already moved out, I mean, but that's the kind of chaos that happens when you have, again, two men with an emotional reaction can make a decision like that. Like was what happening right now with what ended up getting our visa locked down and canceled because Trump and they had a little Twitter war. And I'm glad, I hope they feel better about themselves now. But so Trump has more power. He says, yeah, F you, your country can't come here anymore. Great. And so, but anyway, it doesn't get anything done here. And so really to give you an example of how bad, I said I was going to say something about Colombia here. Just yesterday, here in the coffee region, the first time this has happened since I've been here, we had actual military action against the ELN. Outside of Pereira, where I just moved here from, I lived there for 4 years. If you go far enough west in Risaralda, that's the name of the state called department here, it borders on the states that touch the ocean. Along the coast, nobody lives on the Pacific coast of Colombia. It's too dangerous, and that's where most of the drug activity happens. Not Venezuela. It goes out that side. And Venezuela is a good war story. But anyway, so that's where Buena Vista, whatever, is a big port down there. There's a road that leads to there, and the ELN, of course, a big terrorist organization, one that's fighting against the government here. They also are drug runners now, like all of them are. The paramilitaries, the FARC, them, cartels. There's several of them run drugs. They decided to do a classic textbook disruption of that road because the road is important for commerce to come in back and forth. And Pereira is the commerce center of the coffee access, the coffee triangle here. Quindío, where I am, Risaralda, with Pereira, and Manizales is in Caldas. That's just below Medellin, between Cali and Medellin, the coffee triangle. And so on the west side of this, on the way to the coast, the ELN decided they're going to do the classic, here comes a truck, we're going to blow it up on the bridge to block all traffic. And lo and behold, the San Mateo Brigade, the Lanceros of the Colombia Militar, effectively they're Rangers, but they'd be the equivalent of our U.S. Rangers. The Lanceros were dispatched over there, and they got there just about the time they blew up the truck. They blew it up. There's a big firefight. All the ELN guys get offed. They secure the place, they clean it up and all that. But that happened in Risaralda. That is unheard of. And so why is that happening? Well, that's happening because, well, for starters, the president, Petro, is a former terrorist himself. He came from one of these leftist groups that out of date now, and he left it all, put it all behind him and everything, and started a political party, and that's how he got elected. He's up, can't run for re-election. His guy he wants, Zepeda, to run, to get elected, needs help. And so gradually they've been withdrawing the military pressure, and the military hates this. No, don't go after these guys because typically the ones that support, but it gets a lot. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this guy. I also don't want to wind up in a box in the jungle, but bunch of these characters can influence his ability to get this other guy elected because they can provide money, they can provide pressure for people to vote certain ways. There's lots of things the ELN can do, and even the cartels. And so as he's relieved the pressure off of some of these, they've been emboldened. So now we have the ELN and the coffee access, which is out of control. That is so, we're talking 2016 with the peace, the last time probably anybody's had noticeable FARC or ELN here in the coffee access. At the same time that happened yesterday, Medellin, they have 23 of the top cartel guys that they've arrested. They have them in jail now. The United States says, hey, we would like to extradite them. Sound familiar? This is what happened with Pablo. This is what kicked off everything with Pablo. We want to extradite those people. Somehow, who knows how, but the right-leaning mayor or somebody in the administration said no. And so everybody started wondering, uh-oh, he just got a phone call.
Yeah.
If you do that, blah, blah, blah. So he says, let them out. Because why? Well, the reason we need to let them out is because they're also loved in their community, and they can help us with the peace process and getting the warfare and the violence to stop. Even though they're waiting to go through their trials, they can at least be a positive bullshit. So anyway, that's how these guys are now back out. And they're going into the communities and they're convincing them to vote for who? The left-leaning guy. So now the governor of Antioquia, which is the department in which Medellin is, now he says bullshit on that. They have this iron fist thing that they want to do where a lot of Colombians now are seeing what's going on in Ecuador and how Ecuador said, hey, United States, can you come here for a minute and help us deal with these narco-terrorists? Same ELN, same type of those kind of people, same, all of them, just on the other side of the river, the Amazon or wherever it be. Anyways, on the other side, south of here. And the U.S. does that. In January, they had a big operation. 2 weeks ago, they have a big operation, U.S. Special Operation. It was 7th Special Forces Group. Sorry, not the 5th. 7th Special Forces Group is down here helping them out doing that. U.S. troops, boots on the ground, and they're being very effective. Think of Bukele up there in El Salvador, the way that he put down the iron fist and turned El Salvador into a very nice place now. And it was the most dangerous in all the Latin American countries 10 years ago. And the Colombians looking at that. And they're like, well, that was pretty cool, too. And the Colombians look over at Maduro, who in this region, particularly conservative Colombia, they were like, wish that guy'd get out of here. Thank you, Donald Trump. They're all about Donald Trump. They love Donald Trump. And they're like, we would love to have some of those guys come help us, too. Get rid of these goons. But that's not what the left wants. And so the goons will obviously give everything they can to make sure the left stays in power, because the left doesn't say we don't want to get rid of the military or we don't want to fight drugs, but we don't need to spend money on getting a bigger military or more fancy equipment to be able to figure this out. What we need are more schools in the rural areas where nobody can ever know that the school wasn't built. It's much more easy to be corrupt that way, because if we're corrupt and say we're buying military equipment, there better be a helicopter. But if I say I want to include or I want to raise the education in the countryside, you can't really see that. So it's much easier to corrupt the corruption, and the money never actually goes there anyway. It just goes in their pockets. And so, man, I'm going to be regretting this. I'll be sitting in a box, in a bamboo box by the end of the week. But hey, before I get put in the box, you know it's the truth. You know what I mean? So anyway, this is all happening in Antioquia. Now we have potentially Medellin Cartel members. How does that sound? Medellin Cartel. Just saying that out loud, because you think of Pablo, obviously. So 23 Medellin Cartel members, not the Medellin Cartel, but they're narcos, are now being not given the United States. The United States wants them. The leader is getting pressure not to let go of them because of, obviously, you don't want bad things to happen to you and your family. The governor is now saying, hogwash on that. We should go in boots on the ground or whatever to get them out. And so now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, in the next 6 months, where I'm living is going to go one of two ways. One, Zepeda gets elected. ELN and all them are even more emboldened. There is no chance I'm getting my wife's visa to the United States. We either got to think about moving out of the country or living here in a safe place. And that's going to be my world. And Colombia, forget it. You're gone. You're good. You're going to be another Venezuela, the way Venezuela was until a few months ago, if that happens. Now, if they reelect the other guy, there's two of them on the right, whichever one wins, the man or the woman. Depending. If they elect the woman, they're going to have a pretty, it's fiscally responsible. Yes, we're going to have the U.S. down here helping. We're going to improve on relations with the United States. Everything will be nice with the U.S. again in that regard. Still the oldest and longest running ally of the United States and all Latin America. All that'll still be there. And things will be generally good. But if they elect the guy, he wants to do a Bukele. He wants to do, let's invite everybody down here. Come on, Rangers. Come on, SEAL Team 6. Come on, everybody. Hey, you Russia or Germans, I don't care. Everybody come. Let's just stamp these guys out for good. And then it'll be dicey here, but the safety factor for people like me won't be in. And who knows? But in the long run, Colombia will be in great shape. If they could finally get rid of at least the terrorism.
I hope they do. That would be great.
Having a leftist that stands out in front of dressed as a frog in front of an ice place, throwing tear gas all day long, that's
Send
one thing.
Send them down there.
Right. But when you find yourself as part of 75 guys in a jungle shooting helicopters out of the sky, blowing people up and slaughtering villages, if that's your left, no.
Well,
give me the purple guy.
Yeah.
I'll take the woke guy all day over that. And so they can have that. I'm not saying you can't have left, But you can't
Well,
have.
can't we send those purple people down there?
Yeah, I mean, think how combat ready the Colombian military and the FARC and all that. These people, that's all they do. I mean,
Yeah,
for FARC, if you're in the Colombian military, your entire time you're fighting. Colombian military is the most battle hardened of all,
I
including the United
imagine they would be.
Well, they are, because if you get into like the Lanceros, which is their Rangers, you can be guaranteed you're going to be seeing action. There's a good chance you're going to get killed. You're going to be
Well,
seeing a lot, and you're going to be walking up on villages where whole lines of people were slaughtered. I mean, it's not fun, and
so
it's knockdown, drag out.
do they get mercenaries going down there to want to join up with them? Is that legal?
Well, let me tell you about that. Colombia is the largest producer of mercenaries in the world.
Well, there you have it.
In fact, right now, I don't know if you know about this, but there's a whole like battalion of Colombians that are contractors that are currently fighting for Ukraine.
But Ukrainian officials have said that since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, more than 8,000 foreigners have joined the ground forces, with many more joining other branches. Most observers now agree that Colombians make up the largest share of foreign fighters. In this interview, one Colombian soldier describes his experience of fighting in Ukraine.
Yeah,
and they have a YouTube channel, and they put out videos. You can see them with their little Colombian flags running up, shooting the Russians. They're very good, and almost all of them are retired military. Because see, the thing is, just like in the United States, you get out of SEAL Team 6, you get out of Rangers, you get out of the Green Berets, something like that, Delta.
Well, those guys do it too.
Right. It's an easy thing. Look at Sean Ryan. You be a contractor, pick up a contract from the CIA, go fight someplace, guard an embassy, shoot people, whatever, depending on what it is you want to do. But even that, unless you were deployed to Afghanistan constantly, you don't have as much experience as a guy that's been fighting in the jungles or in a village or in a city environment constantly for their entire time against a highly trained or at least violent force. I mean, that's your day job, combat here. It's not, are we getting deployed? You're always deployed. And so if you go through 10 years, and see, here's the other thing about it. One last thing I want to say. The Lanceros school itself was formed by the United States Army Rangers. They came down here and helped put it together. And today, once a year, they have a training where they invite in international people. And they come from all over, and you'll see people from the U.S. Special Forces in there. You'll see people from DevGru, which is SEAL Team 6, places like that. And every time they leave, they say this is the hardest school, including BUDS or the U.S. Army Ranger School, of anything they've ever done. Because the difference here is that you're doing that same kind of training, but you're doing it in a real triple canopy jungle environment, and it's a whole nother level of hard. And so that's the Lanceros. And there's a brigade of them right here at the 4th Brigade, or they're part of the brigade here in Armenia. We have them in San Mateo. They have a mountain training center in Manizales. And then just over the ridge here in Tolima is their main training center. And so this area is Lancero heavy because of its importance to Colombia for the coffee region. And it's also very conservative. I live in like a fortress. You'd never see it that way. It's very well monitored. I see military all the time.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's the best news. And the thing is that it's always thumbs up with the cops. Well, you don't call them cops. The policia. Everybody's friend. They're very friendly. They're very nice. They're very cool. They're not going to fuck with you. Not like Mexico. And the military, same thing. Everybody gives them a thumbs up. And everybody loves them.
Is it mandatory to be in the military down there, or is it hard to get into the military?
The first one. You are compelled to go in unless it's like the United States would be in the draft. If you have a reason you can't, in most cases, and I'll just say this now, all of my friends that are Colombians, except for one, Daniel, a common way to do it is your parents have money. Let's say it like that.
To get out of
going in the first place. You basically buy your way out of it.
Like the U.S.
Well, I don't know about but I guess maybe that went on during Vietnam. But I'm talking about today here, huh? Like what?
Trump's son won't go to war.
I don't know. Okay, I hadn't heard much about that, but at any rate, to get back to what is happening in Colombia, yes, they do have the compelled 2-year service. I think it's 2 years out of high school, and I know one guy that did that, and he told me that he did for 3 years, all he did was fight in the jungles.
Wow.
So it was every day. Every day. So he's got up, they'd drive out, and if they weren't fighting, they were finding remnants of a fight or tracking people, but it was constant. He says just nonstop. Same thing with a lot of the police. No. That's another thing you don't see here, the veteran community.
Right.
You know, look at me. Look at me. I'm running around like I'm Joe Ranger. I've got my, yes, it was a Ranger unit, but not that Rangers, but it was Ranger. And so so what I mean when I say Ranger is the 216 Infantry in the Big Red 1, 1st Infantry Division, nickname is Rangers because on Normandy, when you see those gates come down and all those guys that was them. That was 216 Infantry. And when they hit the beach at Normandy, they got mixed up with the Rangers, and some of them were in that went up there. And the story goes that after the battle, when Eisenhower was reviewing the troops, he came up to the 216, and he said that the New York Times coverage said Rangers scaled the cliffs is correct, but it should have also included the 216 Infantry in there, and that forever after they would be called Rangers. So that's where 216, and we were actually said Ranger everywhere we went. So we were the Iron Rangers. It was an experiment, as they said, during the 80s. I don't know how much of that is the way it worked out, but when I talk about it like that. So that is not the Rangers I'm talking about when I talk about the 75th Rangers. Now, that's the U.S. Army Rangers in that way. We're 11 Bravo like them, but they're more special. They're up one level of tiers from us lowly grunts in 216 Infantry. But see, that's what I'm saying. I have 40 different friends that I served with in Bravo Company 216 back in the 80s, and we stay in touch. And we all have bumper stickers, veteran, we all does yeah. I've never seen any veteran swag here in Colombia. You'd never know somebody's a veteran. I think it's all just connected to such a country pain of just being tired of constantly being they went through a 60-year civil war that never really ended in 2016. Meanwhile, you still have the overlay of these narcos. You have the whole world looking at you like the only thing you are is a bunch of cokeheads, when nobody in Colombia cocaine use in Colombia, I never hear about it. It's the United States and Europe.
That's for us up here.
It really is. I mean, down here, it's aguardiente and rum and psychedelics. I know there's lots of psychedelics and there's lots of marijuana, but cocaine is such a taboo thing here. It would be the equivalent, like if somebody came here, this is the way I talked about it one time. Somebody's like, yeah, let's go down here. Can I do like a Pablo Escobar tour? Is there people I can go talk to about Pablo? I said, how would you like it if somebody showed up in Atlanta and said, hey, can we go to a slave auction today?
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. But that's about how people take it here. My wife, if I ever mention she can get visibly upset hearing anybody else but a Colombian talk about Colombia and cocaine. They're so hypersensitive to that because they hate it that people look at them as nothing but cocaine people. And of course, the media and the U.S. toxic post-Newt Gingrich way of looking at the world reduces them to that. And plus Hollywood too. How many movies do you see about Colombia that doesn't involve cocaine?
Scarface. Yeah.
Well, first, it's not about Colombia, and second, it was all about
he's
cocaine.
Cuban, I think.
Right. Okay. No, I mean, there's Encanto and all that, I'm sure there's other movies, but still, stereotype there, and then easily just laying on the political veneer of it, and so blah blah. At the end of the day, both forms of democracy here, the chaos of Colombia and the rigidness of U.S., both end up with the same thing. The people at the top get to just be the people at the top. People that want to yell and scream get to yell and scream. Sometimes their stuff gets tended to. The vast majority of the people pay for it, and the stuff that almost everybody agrees on doesn't get done.